Welcome to the Karen Kenney Show. Hey, you guys, welcome to the Karen Kenney Show. I'm super duper excited to be here. And thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If you tune in regularly, like you already know who I am, right? Like maybe my face is familiar, you know my voice, you know what we talk about here on the show. But if like you're wicked new to the show, first of all, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here. And you can find out, like, I'm not going to read you some long ass bio, but you can find out all about me, Karen Kenney, KENNEY.com, the work I do, the stuff I offer, whatever. But in a wicked short synopsis, right? A little short synopsis. I'm a certified spiritual mentor. I am a writer. I'm a speaker. I'm a storyteller. I'm a integrative coach. I'm a hypnotist. I've been a yoga teacher for like 26 years. I do Thai yoga massage, like Thai yoga, body work, blah, blah, on and on and on. Mostly I'm a child of God. I'm an extension of the universe. I try to spread love. That's what the heartbeat of the show is about spirituality and storytelling and, kind of just learning all about who we are, why we do what we do, say what we say, think what we think, et cetera, et cetera. And I just really try to share applicable and practical tools and tell stories that like have maybe universal principles in them, but that you can also somehow like put into action in your life. So spreading a little more love in the world is kind of like my modus operandi. That's why I like to do this show. Okay. So today's episode is brought to you by different inspirations. One was a conversation I was having with my friend who I call Emiline. Her real name is Emily Aborn, but I call her Emiline. And so we were talking about collaborations, and that's kind of like the heartbeat of what this episode is about. And then also something that I saw online from an actor that I love, Ethan Hawke. And so I'm going to dive into that right now. So Emiline is actually doing Emily Aborn, right? Her podcast is called Content with Character. And next week, so whenever you're listening to this, on her episode is coming out on like August 19th, 2025. And she's talking all about collaborations. So you want to go check that episode out for sure. And she's kind of coming at it more from a professional standpoint, a business standpoint. I'm talking about collaborations on more of a personal level. And I think so often we think about collaborations being for business, right? Or school or something that's not as close to the human heart. But I think all relationships are like good collaborations, right? Or I should say maybe all good relationships are like good collaborations. So relationships are like collaborations. And let me kind of tell you what I mean by that. So a lot of times when we're going to quote unquote collaborate with somebody out in the world, we're kind of looking at it from a very strategic point of view. It's like, okay, what are they bringing to the table? What am I bringing to the table? How is this going to benefit me? How is this going to benefit them? Is this going to speak to my audience? Is this going to land with my listeners or my clients? Blah, 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 blah. But for me, and it's not even a but, and for me, the main driving force is the math has to be mathing, meaning when we bring me together with you, right? When we bring these two living, breathing human beings, these human spirits together, you've got 1 + 1, and hopefully you are better together. Meaning that when you come together, that you create a certain kind of magic that benefits not only each of you, but the greater world, your community, your family, your environment. And so when I think about relationships, this goes to personal relationships, like hopefully within your family, your friends, your sweetie, your partner who you're married to or sleeping with or like whatever, right? So when you're going into this, who you choose when you're going into a relationship with, right? When you're planning on hooking up with somebody, whether that's for months, years, life, whatever, right? Who you choose to quote unquote collaborate with matters. So it's not that we want to be picky in this special way, like I'm better than you, but we want to think about this beyond just the pretty surface stuff. Like, oh, that person's hot. Like, I want to be with them. It's like, well, let's like, we go like a little bit of a deeper dive because those elements beyond, oh, it's just going to look good together, right? Underneath that is, it's like, are we better together? What I'm bringing into the relationship and what they're bringing into the relationship is we collaborate together. Are we going to create something that is really strong, that is really powerful, that is really, can kind of like last over time? Now, sometimes there are going to be quick collaborations, right? You might meet somebody and you decide to do a project together and like that's whatever. But if we're doing something for a long period of time together, it's really important, I think, that we start off by choosing somebody who we're going to be in a relationship slash collaboration with, that we respect, that we trust, and beyond loving them, that we actually like them. Because there are all kinds of people that you quote unquote love, right? Oh, it's like, oh, that's my uncle. I love him. He's a part of my family. I find it fascinating that we can love people. There's a love there, but we necessarily don't want to like maybe hang out with them or Oh my God. We don't want to see them that often. You know what I'm saying? We don't want to go to lunch. It's like, yeah, I love them and, right? And find the right distance or whatever. But something that Ethan Hawke said made me really start to think about this idea. He was talking about that he and his wife had started to collaborate. She was getting more into like producing films. And so they were working on a project. And one of the things he said, two things that really jumped out at me. And I want to share them here because I think they're really applicable to our relationships, to these collaborations that we decide to get into. And he said, number one of the things that makes a successful collaboration is you have to be open to other people's ideas. A lot of times we come into relationships and we think like, this is who I am. This is the way, the right way, the only way. I'm the one that has the strength in this area. Like we kind of put ourselves in boxes and sometimes we put ourselves up on pedestals and we just don't listen very well to what other people are trying to share with us. And so, number one, I think when we go into a relationship or a collaboration, we have to keep our minds open, our ears open, our eyes open, our hearts open, right? We have to be open to what the other person is sharing with us, their ideas, right? We can't just say like, no, I'm the boss here, like you suck it in a bucket, right? That's not how this works. So number one, we got to be open to other people's ideas. And this applies, right? Because here's the thing, even if everything I'm saying can also pretty much be applied to business collaborations, because all those are relationships as well. They just might not be as, intimate, let's put it that way. But even a really good business collaboration, there is a certain amount of intimacy and vulnerability that goes on there. Okay, number two, Ethan Hawke. He says you have to trust your collaborators. You have to trust your collaborators. And the way that he said it really made me laugh. And it made me think about long-term relationships, because I think that there's this thing that happens in long-term relationships. And I've talked about this on other episodes where people just kind of start to take each other for granted. People like to start to like pigeonhole people and label them and think of them as like, well, I'm the one who cooks. They're the one who cleans. I'm the one that has the mechanical skill set. They're more analytical, or they're more feely, or they're like whatever. And so we label people. We stop seeing them. We stop trying to understand them because we think we know everything already. We know everything about them. We know how they are. We think we can predict what story they're going to tell, what their mood's going to be, how they're going to respond. We don't even allow them to have a present moment experience because we've already like labeled them or whatever. And when we start to do this, we start to take them for granted. And we don't trust them anymore. We're not as curious about them. We show up with all of our judgments. So we have to trust our collaborators. And he said it like this. He says, you have to keep in mind, right? I'm paraphrasing a little bit. He says there was a time instead of project, right? Instead of the word project, just think relationship, okay? He says there was a time when you really wanted them to join this project. And it's because you thought they were smart. And I love this so much. There was a time when you were starting to get into a relationship with somebody and you were like, yeah, I want to do life with this person. I want to spend time with this person. I want to exchange time, energy, resources, money, sex, bodies, whatever with this person because you trusted them, because you thought that they were bringing something worthwhile to the table, right? You thought they were smart. And there's this kind of really low grade, secret kind of like internal contempt that I see that builds over time in relationships where the couple stops collaborating and they're more like competing or withholding. And I've seen this especially in older couples, like talking about like grandparent level couples, right? And I know some grandparents are much younger these days, but I'm talking like old school, like old school. And one of my set of grandparents, oh my God, I couldn't tell. Like I'm like they stayed married like up until their deaths, but I'm like there was so much contempt, there was so much anger, and I think just disappointment and eye rolling. You know, like one would start to talk and the other one would like roll their eyes so hard and far and back in their head that I'd be like, I don't know if she's gonna be able to get those down. you know? And I'm like, whatever this relationship slash collaboration was at the get-go, I think at this point now they just pretty much can't stand each other, but they stayed together because that's what you did back then. You know what I mean? So one of the things when we're going into these relationships, into these, especially these longer term collaborations, is we want to understand like what is this other person's values? Like what are their core values? Like what really matters to them, right? And what do they consider valuable? Like what matters to them? Like who are they? You know what I mean? Because again, who you are choosing to collaborate with matters. And we're going to go into how it doesn't always work out in a minute. We want to understand how they communicate. Like if I'm trying to do a project with somebody, I need to know like who they are, what's their style? Like, what's their style of communication? Are they going to be like timely and getting back to me? Are they able to, do they have emotional intelligence? Can they tell me what they're thinking, what they feel? Do they communicate in a very gruff or abrupt or harsh way? Do they tend to need an invitation to communicate, or are they afraid of being a bother? Like there's so many layers to it, right? We want to understand their commitment level. Like how serious are they about this thing? How serious are they about this project or this relationship? Like, are we on the same level of commitment? Are they doing like, hey, this is a one-off thing? Right? Or are they looking to go a little deeper and to establish, you know, a connection and to establish some history and some time in like whatever? You know, what's their skill set? What, again, not so much like what are you bringing to the table, but like, yeah, what's your contribution to this relationship? Like like do you have the capacity, right, to communicate, to care? Are you a total raging narcissist? Are you so traumatized that you're not able to access parts of you? Like, you know, like who am I dealing with? You know, again, what's their style of how they're showing up in the world? Because I think in a really good relationship and in a really good collaboration, there is enough room for everybody to shine. So even if your styles are totally different, one of the beautiful things, like I think about my sweetie and I, right? Like my sweetie and I, we share a lot of the same core values. Like we care about, you know, certain, like we both love animals. We both are like a little introverted and we do extroverted things, right? Even though we're both very introverted, we do very extroverted things in our life. we both are artists, right? He's a musician and I'm a writer. We're both creatives. We both value like time together, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So, but he is like, he has a skill set. Like, I marvel at his skill set. He is so ridiculously talented. Like, it just makes me want to punch myself in the face sometimes. He's so talented. And he can shine he shines in very particular ways. And then there's me and what I do, and then there's whatever my skill set and whatever I do in the world, right? So we complement each other, and there's room for both of us to shine. You know, there was a period of time in my life where I kept choosing partners, I kept choosing people who were like always really talented, but there was no real room in the relationship for me to shine because it was always about them. It was always about my contribution was in upholding them, supporting them, being their greatest cheerleader. You know what I mean? And slowly over time, right, I finally, chose a guy who and there was another relationship. In fairness, there was another relationship before that that started to give me a taste of that, of like putting the spotlight a little bit more on myself. And my sweetie just really, really supports me, and he's my biggest number one fan, right? And that's another thing. Like you want to be a fan of the other person that you're collaborating with, that you're in relationship with. You don't want this weird fucking competition. Like I just cannot, I can't stand that. Like I know people believe in healthy competition. They're like, oh yeah, when I see them doing well, it makes me want to ratchet it up a gear. Like, whatever, that's fine. I'm talking about the kind of competition where it gets weird. You know, when like the vibe starts to get weird and you're like, oh, this doesn't feel like it's a supportive mutual fan club thing. This starts to feel like either there's envy or jealousy or them actually frenemy, right? They really actually don't want me to do well. They don't want me to shine too bright. Like they think that my brightness casts a shadow rather than seeing that, we're kind of that sunlight that we're both bringing is nurturing all the way around. Yeah, we want to be in relationship, aka collaboration with people where we actually support one another, you know? Because I'll tell you this, I can think off the top of my head. And I'm sure that look at if I'm leaving anybody, nobody take this personally, anybody who I've worked with in the past. But just off the top of my head, I can think of like three really fantastic collaborations that I had. My first one was when I was in college in BU. My friends, I was lucky enough to actually be in school in the same classes with just friends who I adored, like I adored. And my sophomore year, we had to do what was called a capstone project. And basically, we had to get together and we had to like research. I think we actually did a paper on the Hare Krishna movement, but it was like myself, my friend Christy, I think, my friend Grover. There was like four or five of us. I think there was four of us. And we each brought our own particular skill set. And other thing is that we all trusted each other and we were all reliable. No, nobody was dragging ass. Nobody was slacking. Nobody was not doing their part. No, at least in my memory, right? That's how I remember it, is that everybody was doing their job. Like, do your job. That's another part of a powerful, collaboration slash relationship is, don't be slacking. Don't be slacking. Don't be withholding. Like everybody do your damn job. And it just makes it easier for everybody else. You know what I mean? I'm not saying you can't have a tough time or go through a period where you need more support or attention or love or whatever. But if you pull your own weight and you really do your best, that goes a long way. Another time is the New Hampshire Yoga Retreat. So for 5 years, I partnered up with three other yoga teachers who are my friends, and we put on these fantastic yoga retreats. And like 120 people would come, and it would be so much fun. And we would do it over a 3-day weekend. And we all came from different studios. We all brought different points of view and strengths and whatever, and we all believed in each other and supported each other, and there was no weirdness, right? There was no like jealousy. It was a true collaboration. It was such a blast. And then my friend Emiline. Emily and I did a collaboration called the Content Compass when we talked all about like creating content and storytelling and whatever. And it was one of the easiest and funnest and just like no drama. Like it was like, okay, we would hop on a Zoom, we'd talk about it. We're like, let's do it over this many days. That sounds great. What time do you think? Yeah, sure. It was so easy, which and it was easy, it was fun, it gave me more energy. I did not feel drained because let's be honest, I've had some bad collaborations, like things where I thought, oh, this is a good idea. This person is X, Y, and Z, so this is going to be like a good fit, right? We're all bringing different POVs to the table. Like, let's do this thing. There's one in particular that I think about now. I cannot tell you. It never got off the ground. Was planning an event with some people, and there was one person in particular who made it so fucking hard. Just like everything was like, we talk about like pulling teeth. It was like an energetic suck of the biggest and deepest level. And I would get off those calls and those Voxer those threads, and I would just be like, I can't do this. It was like pushing a rock uphill again and again, like a massive boulder. And I would be like, this is so exhausting. And it was because I'm not saying, look, we all bring our own stuff, right? We all bring our own stuff to a collaboration. But one of the things that I saw is that this person had a different style of communication. This person was not willing to be open really to other people's ideas. They did not trust their collaborators. And how do you know that? Is because they were trying to control every little thing. And they kind of kept making themselves be the centerpiece. They had to be like, oh, I do, I. And I'd be like, hey, there's like two other people here. You know what I mean? Because you'll just know. I mean, double amen hands, you guys. If you've ever had to work on a project or you got paired up with somebody or whatever, we know what a shitty collaboration partner feels like, right? So I don't have to like hop on it and drag people through the mud or blah, 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 blah. Because I'm sure there's somebody out there at some point that could say, oh, yeah, and they were not the strongest collaboration partner, um, back in the day, whatever. But here's the thing. If you are going to engage, right? And quote unquote collaborate. I think all relationships are like collaborations and we want them to be good, right? We want to, at the very least, own what we're bringing to the relationship, showing up with honesty, showing up and saying, this is what I'm capable of. This is what I'm not capable of, at least right now. This is what I'm working on. This is what I'm willing to do. These are my values. This is who I am. And what that means is part of it means you have to know yourself. Now, sometimes we might quote unquote surprise ourselves about how we're showing up or not showing up, how we're reacting, responding, communicating, whatever. But if you don't know yourself, if you don't know what you're good at, if you don't know where your strengths lie, where your weaknesses are, where you struggle, where you get triggered, but like you have to know yourself if you're going to be getting into a quote unquote collaboration with somebody, especially long term, and it requires a lot of honesty, first and foremost with yourself. Because nobody wants to be bamboozled. Nobody wants to put in the time, the energy, and the effort to plan a life with you, never mind just a project with you. If you're not going to be who you say you are, who you are, you know what I mean? If you're not going to do what you say, if there's a lack of congruency, remember I always say the assignment is alignment. If you're out of alignment, there will be that cognitive dissonance. They're going to be like, well, wait, they say that they always show up on time, but they're always late. They say they care about X, Y, and Z, but their actions are in complete opposition to what the crap that came out of their mouth was. You know what I mean? And that will break down trust. And sometimes it all looks good on paper. It all looks good on paper. And then you actually start to get into each other's kind of energetic field. You start to spend a little bit of time together. You have to be able to kind of like read the vibe and read the room. And there are times when, yeah, not all collaborations are going to be wicked smooth all the time. There'll be speed bumps. That's just life. But we have to know when to say no. We have to know when we have to pull the plug because this isn't just this isn't like a temporary thing, right? Like this is how that person operates in the world. And there's just going to be this isn't going to work. And the thing is you don't have to hate somebody because of it. You don't have to cast them out of your hat. You can simply just say like, yeah, I don't think this is going to be a good fit. You know what I mean? And again, I think everything I'm saying also applies to business. I think whenever you're going, because it's all relationships, even if you bump into somebody at the grocery store, a stranger, for like 10 seconds, and you share a glance, you share a moment, you get somebody some cereal done off the top shelf because they're shorter than you. That is a momentary like relationship, And of course, in miracles, we call it like a level of teaching. There's that moment, there's that opportunity. And every time you interact with another person, it's an opportunity for a holy moment. And again, it makes me think about what Ethan said. You have to trust your collaborators, which means you have to remember that you started to go into this thing because you thought the other person was smart or they had some value, that they were bringing something to the relationship. So when you find yourself starting to slip into that kind of like agitation or contempt or judgment or eye rolling or taking people for granted or whatever, that's when you want to really just slow down and start to take a look at what's going on inside of you. And I think to know, again, we're going back to like, you got to know yourself. You got to know why you're feeling what you're feeling, why you think what you think, why you say what you say, why you do what you do, and what kind of shit that you're bringing to the collaboration. Because it's really easy to be focusing on, well, they're not doing this and they're not doing that and they're not saying this and they're not holding up their end and they're not them. It's all their fault. It's all whatever. We have to be willing to take a look at ourselves too and say, do I trust this other person in the collaboration, meaning myself? Like, am I actually showing up at my highest level? Am I showing up from a place of love, or am I showing up from a place of my fear and my neuroses and all my bullshit, all my undealt with trauma, all my emotional baggage? And I always talk about it like this. I think about relationships like when you're dating. Like when people first start dating, they love to show up and put on their best act, right? Their best self steps forward and goes on the date for the first however long, right? Because if people were to just show up with their big bag of emotional stuff, all their undealt with stuff, all their habits and patterns and conditions and insecurity and bullshit. And if they just imagine just walking up like you're meeting at a restaurant, it's like the first time you're meeting each other. And you both like walk up to the table, or one of you's already sitting at the table, and the other person just walks up with this big Santa-sized sack full of stuff, full of shit. And they just set it down and they're like, hi, like this is me. And they gesture, this is me and like my stuff, right? The other person would be like, yeah, check, please. Check, please. I'm out of here. So we have a responsibility too in our relationships and in our collaborations to know what we're bringing to the table. And literally imagine that like two people about to sit down at this table and they're looking at each other and they're like, so what, you want to do this thing? Like, how you doing? Like, what's going on? Like, we think we can make this thing work? Like, who are you? What are you doing? What are you up to? What are you carrying around? What's your attitude? What's your values? How do you communicate? Is there room for me in this relationship, or is it going to be the you show like all the time, right? Is there mutual respect and support, right? Do we love each other? Double amen hands if you get that. But do we like each other? Like, would we choose each other? Would we choose each other? And that's a really important thing, because remember, who you choose to collaborate with, who you choose to do relationship with, it matters. And then one other point, like, because beyond that, They become like an extension of you, you know? And so I often talk about how like, I don't like to be associated with people who are doing shady shit. I want to surround myself with people who look, and we're all flawed. We're all flawed. We're all a work in progress. But there's a difference between they made a mistake, they screwed up, they're learning, and that is some shady shit. That is a person who is like up to no good. I'm all for fun shenanigans, right? I'm all for like, we're going to stumble, we're going to be clumsy. That's life. We're doing our best and we're going to get better and we apologize and we own it. And then there's people who are up to some stuff that I want nothing to do with and I don't want to be associated, right? So it can be really easy to be charmed by people. So one of the other things I'll say is before you jump into a collaboration, a relationship, a friendship, pump the brakes a little bit, have a little patience, feel things out, get a real sense of people. Because we are training our brains these days for everything to be fast, immediate, want instant gratification. Let's just do everything, right? And like we need to be able to pump the brakes, kind of take a look at the larger landscape, kind of float above the timeline, go above everything, take a look-see, take a little look-see around and be like, who is this person really? What am I getting into? And, some people, you get involved too fast, too furious, right? The Fast and the Furious, and it doesn't always end well. I feel like I could talk about this for a really long time, this metaphor, right, of relationships or like good collaborations, but I think I'm going to pause it there for now. And it's just an invitation too to take a look around and see who are you collaborating with these days. Maybe you haven't collaborated with somebody in a long time. Maybe your collaboration partner recently passed away, or you broke up, or they left, or there's been a rift or some kind. Maybe it's time to start looking, to collaborate. Or maybe the greatest collaboration you want to have is between you and yourself, or you and your book, your artistry, your writing, you and your music, you and whatever you're creating, you and your clients. I don't know, you and your pets, like whatever. It's not for me to say what your next collaboration should be. But maybe you've been not really pouring into any kind of collaboration lately. And maybe you've just been kind of like dog paddling, trying to keep your head above water. But there are some great collaborators out there, and they're also looking for you and for the beauty and the wisdom and the joy and the fun and the love. And let me just say that too. Great collaborations, great relationships, they have fun. You have more fun together. And so if you're starting to feel like, oh, these things, this doesn't really feel that fun anymore. And I'm not talking about like hard patches, because all relationships go through those kind of tough patches, right? I shouldn't say all, most, let's normalize that. Most relationships, they go through a thing when you feel a little out of sync or whatever. I'm not talking about that. But sometimes there comes a point where you're just like, yeah, this is just a grind and I don't see a way out. Like, and I'm not saying give up, right? That's what therapy and coaching and mentoring, there's 1,000 things you can do. But sometimes when we start to realize, yeah, this doesn't feel that fun anymore, that's like a flare being sent up into the consciousness to take a look at that. But hopefully, whoever you are collaborating with right now, you're having a lot of fun. And I'm so grateful to all the people that have been great collaborators with me throughout my lifetime. And I've had some great collaborations, and I super duper appreciate you. And right now, I feel like I'm having a collaboration with my listeners. So thank you so much again for being here. I hope this has been helpful in some way or got you just thinking a little differently. I always say I'm not here to tell you what to think, but it's an invitation to think. And sometimes it might be a new way of thinking, which is always fantastic and fun. So I appreciate you so much. Don't forget, my friend Emiline has her Content with Character podcast. It's coming out on August 19th, and she's kind of taking a collaboration angle more from the business side, and I'm really excited to listen to that, and maybe you'll check it out too. And just thank you for being here. And wherever you go, Wherever you go, may you leave yourself and the place and the animals and the planet and the other people, your other collaborators, better than how you first found them. Wherever you go, may you and your energy and your presence and your love, be a blessing. Bye.